Here we'll talk a little bit about body fluid compartments, their separations, and their volumes. Let's start here at the upper left, and we're going to use a model of our total body weight of this circle. In other words, this circle represents our entire body. And what we can see is that we are, on average, about 60% water by weight. The other 40% is comprised of largely adipose tissue lipids, minerals, most of which are found in bone tissue, and then, of course, a significant protein fraction. If we look at the fraction of us that is water, this 60%, we can see that it does not fall entirely within one compartment. It's broken up into two compartments. Actually, it's broken into trillions of compartments. But 40 trillion of those are lumped together here as the intracellular fluid, the cytoplasm. That fluid compartment is separated from the extracellular fluids, the fluids that are outside the cells. We can see that the extracellular fluid is also broken up into two compartments, being the interstitial fluid, the ISF, and the plasma, or the blood contained water. And if we take a look at the separations between these compartments, we can see that we've got the cell membranes separating the ICF and the ISF. That barrier is semi-permeable and allows us to maintain gradients that are set up across the cell membranes. That's quite different from the capillary walls, which have high permeability to everything except the plasma proteins. That means the interstitial fluid and the plasma fluid will both have very similar composition outside of the plasma having a significantly higher concentration of proteins. Now, there is a connection between these compartments besides across the capillary wall here, and that's the lymphatic system. Plasma is filtered. Exchanges between compartments in general are driven by either osmotic or hydrostatic pressures. And so we get a net movement from plasma to the interstitial fluid, and that extra is picked up as lymph and is driven right back into the plasma. So we've got this sort of circuitous pathway of fluid moving from plasma to interstitial fluid and back. Now, that's not to say there isn't also potential fluid movement to and from the cells across the cell membranes. That's also true. Now, with this scenario, if we assume a 70 kilogram person here, what we would find is that our 40% would equal 28 liters, and our 20% would equal 14 liters, 11 of which would be in the ISF, and 3 of which would be in the plasma. So we end up with what we call the 60-40-20 rule, right? 60% of us is water, 40% of that is in the ICF, the other 20% in the ECF. Of course, those two added together give us the 60%. We could break it down a little bit further. In the ECF, you can see these are unequal compartments. The interstitial fluid is about 3/4 of this 20%. Well, that would be 15. And the plasma volume would be the other 5% of our body mass. And so these two added together would give us this 20% ECF value. Now, we also have fluid exchanges to and from the body over the course of a day. Those all occur via the extracellular fluid. And so all of our arrows in or out of our body are coming into and out of this extracellular fluid compartment. Our input would be ingestion, of course, drinking and eating. We also make some water through metabolic processes. Our outputs occur largely across transport epithelia. So the kidneys, the lungs, skin, we've got sweat for sensible perspiration, skin, there's an insensible perspiration, water loss, and then of course GI loss as well. And so overall, we can see that we've got these multiple compartments. They're separated by barriers that are more restrictive, like the cell membrane, or more permeable, like the capillary walls, and pressures driving flux of water across these barriers is driven by hydrostatic or osmotic pressures.